All right, guys, we are back in action with the Jameis Highpoint. We're pulling it out of the box, getting it built up. I figured I'd kind of talk through things with you guys a little bit. Some important things. Obviously, I've already unwrapped it, and we're going to get the wheels on now. So I figured that was a good time to kind of go through some cockpit setup and some basic adjustments you guys should really be looking at on your bikes at home. So we'll get this set up. So first things first, on a quick release axle, this is going to be hard to show you guys. Let me zoom you in. Oh boy, cropping and zoom. So on a quick release axle, you guys can see there, as long as this stays on camera long enough, I want this, that we call it a point of contact, so where it kind of wants to naturally stop, I want that to be straight in line with the axle. So my hand's kind of in the way there. But I want that straight in line in the axle at that point of contact. But you can't really do it up in the air. We're going to need to set it on the ground. So right now I'm just kind of pre-holding everything in there. And then I'm going to jump over after I get a zoom back out. Linda girl. Come here, Linda. Linda girl, come here. Release. Good girl. Come here. Hi, sweetie. Linda's on cam with us tonight. She's sleepy. We're working a little bit late. So the front end of this Jameis fault line is a coil fork on a tapered head tube. It does have a through axle though, which is really nice. So this is 15 by 100. Most of your through axles, if you're looking to replace this fork, they're going to be 110 by 15. So they're going to be boost spacing. This is not boost spacing. So keep that in mind, when you're going, if you're going to upgrade this coil to something else. It's a through axle. The nice thing is, if we had a through axle on the rear, I could just put both my wheels in and be done. But can't do that, so I will get our front end in. And the beauty of this front axle is we know our wheel is going to be perfectly aligned every time we put it in. So I grease that up. You're going to want to make sure you grease your through axle as well. If you don't grease your through axle, then it can get stuck in there. So keep that in mind. That's kind of a big thing. You should be checking your bike, especially if you're putting any amount of water on it ever. Have a little thing. Park has PPL1, Polylube, or Muck Off has some cool products. Just a really thin layer of lubrication will help you. I had a couple weeks ago, we had a customer who had not been checking the grease on their axle, maybe even wiped it all off. And he had a frozen axle in his fork, so luckily we were able to cut just with the end caps, and it wasn't a huge deal, but it could have ruined his hub. He could have ended up needing a new wheel. We got lucky, so we cut through the axle, we were able to bang it out, and he was good to go. Most of your through axles are going to be 10 to 12 Newton meters. A lot of people over tighten those, so bust out your torque wrench. If you don't have one, pick one up. They are kind of expensive, like $100, but having a good torque wrench is going to keep you from destroying things or things loosening up unwantedly. Holy moly, that rotor's not even close. So I'll drop the bike down, and again, I'm going to work on my through axle. I'm going to make sure the bike's standing completely straight. And then I'm going to look for that point of contact. And when I close my lever, I'll show you guys once we get it back up. I didn't like that. Crazy. All right, so I'll show you guys what we're looking for on this through axle on the rear. There's a couple different places acceptable for this to be. It can be, you can have the through axle go straight up, or the lever go straight up. You can have it go in between here. You could even do it below, which we would not recommend, or you can have it point straight back. So straight back between your chain stay and your seat stay, or up is the safe ways. Don't put it down. Don't have it contact your frame so it can't close all the way. When you push that over, kind of straight in line with the axle, your lever, is a good way to start. But we want to see an imprint on like the palm of our hand for about 5 seconds after we push that on. So something to keep in mind as you're properly installing those. And what I probably should have done while we had it down on the ground was adjust other things. Should have adjusted our headset while it was down there. Holy moly. We'll jump right back to that now. Tire pressure, if you're running tubes, if you're, kind of 160 to 180 pounds, kind of around 30 psi is probably good. If you go tubeless, you can drop that down to like 22, 20 psi in the front, maybe 22 on the rear. If you're over 200 pounds, maybe start with your tubes, closer to 35 psi, and then when you do your tubeless setup, maybe 24 psi, and then you can experiment with lower pressures from there. So that's good information for you. You're welcome. People always run way too high tire pressure when they come in the shop. The disadvantage if you're running really high tire pressure, you're going to bounce all over the trail. So especially on your front wheel. So if you're running like, let's say 40 psi or 35 psi, or you're running, you said that your Highpoint A2 up, tubeless, and you're still running like 30, 35 psi, that front wheel is going to bounce all over the place. It's going to make it really hard to control. So once you drop that tire pressure down, it's going to have you get a little bit better control, a little bit better feel. You're not going to feel quite as all over the place. You're going to feel more planted. You're going to be able to head straighter down the trail, all those things. So, and that's the advantage to going tubeless, and why I'm getting this Highpoint at $999 is going to be better than most your sub $1,000 bikes. And it's because it is tubeless ready, and you can run lower tire pressures, and you can stay on point on the trail, which are all good things. So you guys will notice if you pick up a bike from the shop, and I do it to customers sometimes too. I'm cautious. I don't just go around changing everybody's bars on them. But I roll bars forward pretty good. So the reason being, all your bars are going to have like a sweep. So you'll see them kind of come back at you. And a lot of people have that pointing down. It feels like it kind of breaks people's wrists open. So if the sweep's coming this way, then it's just turning my elbows in and turning my wrists in. I like the idea of rolling that a little bit far forward. It sticks my elbows out further. And then my weight's going into the flex of that bar. And by going into the flex of the bar, I'm adding some suspension, some comfort to my bike. So, like I said, I roll them really far forward. I think it's groovy. And then all your brake levers and everything like that should be at a 45-degree angle. So again, we don't want, like, you want to get your seat height where it's supposed to be, and then, go ride your bike, and when you're just kind of have a good straight back and you're at a good right angle, look and see, okay, are my wrists bent at all in order to have my one finger on the levers? If they are, then you need to adjust your cockpit up or down. But again, about 45 degrees is going to be what gets you to a good point there. So now I'm lining up our stem. So this is kind of key in a place where a lot of people mess things up. So your stem is what your handlebars connect to. There's 2 bolts on your stem that connects to the steerer. Let me grab a steerer to show you. Got an old coal fork, I think, over here that we pulled off for somebody. Oh, yeah. All right. Let's see how long I can stay on camera. All right, so this is your steer, and your stem grabs onto here. So you've got those two little pinch bolts that just grab onto this. So that's what's going to keep your stem from moving side to side. And then if you look inside it, there, there's a star nut. So what we need to do, if we're going to adjust, there's bearings here and bearings up at the top. That's what makes everything feel so smooth. If we're going to make an adjustment to that, if it's loose, if you feel it knocking, if you can feel play in your fork, then it's probably your headset's too loose, or maybe it's crunchy and it's too tight like this one was when it came in, or like bikes are when they get out of the box. So you have to first loosen these stem ones, because the stem ones are actually holding on to that steer I showed you. So if we just start cranking on this top screw into our top cap, then we're just going to strip that thing out. We're not actually making an adjustment. So loosen those stem bolts first. I'm actually going to be tightening these ones because this is a new bike. It was fully loose. So I'm going to get them kind of the snug point, and then I back off just slightly. That way everything's kind of holding in place. When I make my adjustments, things are going to stay where I put them. So that should be good there to start things. And again, I'm just going to back them off like a little eighth of a turn. So something, that bicycle mechanics do, and I'll show you a little bit closer. But we use, we're using Allens. Each Allen has all these little flats. I use those for measurement. So if I'm making an adjustment to a bicycle on a headset, I'm going to go loose first. And then I'm going to come around, and again, we're going to that point of contact, so that point where the tool just wants to naturally pull out of my hand. So I'm coming around with it, and when that tool wants to naturally pull out of my hand, I'm letting it do so. And then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to go one additional flat. So I'm going to turn one additional flat past that point of contact, and that's typically going to give me what I'm looking for in regards to proper preload on those bearings. And then I'm going to come back in. I line up the handlebars by using the top of the fork here. So I line up the bar with here, and then I look at my stem, make sure it's lined up with the tire as well, kind of help things out. This is a 4mm on this stem. Your stem's typically gonna say how many newton meters tight and all this stuff too. Kind of 5 to 7 is probably safe for most stems, but ideally they'll have it printed. This is a max of 8 on this stem. It's a 4mm, so 6 to 8 would typically be safe. If they were 5mm, then maybe it would be like 8 or 9, but typically about 6 newton meters is fine. So that's it. That sets us up as far as our cockpit goes. When we come back to drivetrain here, and we'll turn the auto director off and get you guys zoomed in. We'll see what kind of fun stuff we can't do with that. But we'll touch that in the next video. I think that's enough for right now. That's your basic cockpit setup. So if you are changing your stem, if you're putting new grips on, I hope maybe that information helps. This is the Highpoint A2, under $1,000, tapered head tube, tubeless ready rims, 1x drivetrain. This is a mountain bike. If you're getting into it, jump on this Jamis. It is upgradable. Unlike your other sub $1,000 bikes, this is something you'll be able to keep for a while. It'll grow with you. Really great. Check out jamisbikes.com. Have your bike shipped to the shed, or check out our website, mtbshed.com. Please subscribe, and we'll go through more videos and just kind of let you guys in on the conversations we have with our customers here in our local bike shop. Thanks, guys. Stick around. There'll be a part 3 coming to you guys soon. And it'll be derailleur adjustments. It's going to be great.